I'd never put much stock in superstitions. The stories of creatures stalking the woods, it all seemed like nonsense to me. I respected the land, sure, but spirits and monsters? I was never one to buy into that. It started earlier during my usual hike through the forest. It was quiet, too quiet. No birds singing, no rustling of leaves from small creatures scurrying about. It was like the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting, and every step I took felt heavier, as if something unseen was watching me. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it was nothing, but the feeling only grew stronger. Every time I looked over my shoulder, expecting to see someone or something there, I found only empty woods. I'd never hurried home from a hike before, but today I did. Now, as I sat in my living room staring at the flickering fire, I couldn't shake the sense that something was watching me, like I wasn't alone, as if something had followed me back to the cabin. It's hard to put into words. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. I froze. Nobody came to my cabin unannounced. I lived too far from town for visitors and I hadn't invited anyone. I stared at the door, half expecting another knock, but the only sound I heard was the wind whipping around the cabin. My heart was pounding now, and that feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. Another knock. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead as I moved toward the door. My hand hovered over the knob for a moment, hesitating. I had no reason to believe something was wrong, yet every instinct in my body screamed at me to not open that door. I swallowed hard and turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but the dark expanse of my front porch and the forest beyond. Nobody. I stepped outside, the cold air biting at my skin. "Hello?" I called out into the night, my voice trembling despite my best effort to stay calm. There was no response, just the rustling of leaves and the occasional gust of wind. I was about to turn back inside when I saw something. At the edge of the clearing, where the light from the cabin barely reached, a figure stood. I squinted, trying to make out details, but it was too dark. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound, just stood there, watching. A strange mix of fear and curiosity welled up inside me, and I stepped off the porch, walking toward it. "Who's there?" I called again. The figure took a step forward, moving just enough into the light that I could see it clearly. It was me. I stopped dead in my tracks. I don't know how else to describe it. It was me, down to the clothes I was wearing, the stubble on my chin, the way my hair curled at the ends. But the eyes were all wrong. They were black, empty pits, soulless and cold. I took a step back, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This had to be a trick, a prank, something. But deep down, I knew better. I'd heard the stories, the ones always dismissed as myths, shapeshifters, creatures that could wear the skin of a man to lure in their prey. A skinwalker. The thing tilted its head, mimicking me, almost as if it was mocking me. My breath came in short gasps now, and I instinctively backed away, retreating toward the safety of the cabin. I took another step forward, this time matching my retreat. I turned and bolted inside, slamming the door behind me and locking it. My hands were shaking, adrenaline surging through my veins. I stumbled backward, putting as much distance between myself and the door as possible. I could hear it now. Footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate. It was right outside. Suddenly the doorknob rattled. The sound sent a shockwave of fear through me, and I braced myself, half expecting it to burst inside at any moment. But it didn't. The rattling stopped and everything went quiet again. Too quiet. Then I heard my voice. "Let me in." It was speaking, mimicking me perfectly, right down to the inflection and tone. It sounded just like me, but I knew it wasn't. My hands clenched into fists as I stood frozen in place, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't let it in. No matter what, I knew I couldn't open that door again. "Please, let me in," it said, this time sounding more desperate, as if it was pleading. "I'm cold." I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping that when I opened them it would all go away. But it didn't. My voice came again, more insistent now. "Let me in. It's cold out here." I backed into the corner of the room, trying to block out the sound. My pulse thundered in my ears. This thing, whatever it was, wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted, and what it wanted was me. The pounding on the door started next, heavy thuds that shook the cabin. "Let me in." I didn't respond. I didn't move. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Silence. I waited, straining to hear anything outside. Footsteps, breathing, something. But there was nothing. I slowly stood up, my legs trembling as I walked towards the door. I hesitated for a moment. Nothing. I was about to exhale, relieved that maybe it was gone, when the sound of a voice, my voice, came from right behind me. "I'm already inside." My blood ran cold. The room suddenly felt impossibly small, the walls closing in as my heart pounded in my chest. Slowly, I turned around, my body stiff with fear. There, standing in the center of the living room, was the thing. It was still me, still wearing my face, my clothes, but something was horribly off. The way it stood, too rigid, too unnatural, and those eyes, black and empty, stared straight through me. I couldn't breathe. How? My voice came out in a strangled whisper, barely audible. It took a step closer, its movements jerky, almost puppet-like. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. My back hit the wall and I was trapped. "I'm already inside," it repeated, this time with a twisted smile that looked out of place on my face, a smile I'd never make. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to do something, but my body wouldn't respond. I was frozen, helpless as it inched closer. Then, the smile faded, replaced by something darker. "I've been waiting for you," it said, its voice shifting, deeper now, more guttural and less human. "For so long." I blinked, and in that split second, it lunged. I don't remember screaming, but the sound tore from my throat as I scrambled to get away. It was faster than I could have imagined. In an instant, it was on me, pinning me to the floor with inhuman strength. I could feel its breath on my face, cold and rancid. I kicked, I clawed, but it was no use. It didn't flinch. Its grip tightened, and the world around me started to spin. I was losing strength, my vision blurring as I fought against the crushing weight of its body. And then it whispered in my ear, "You'll make a perfect skin." I don't know how much time passed before I woke up. The cabin was still, the fire long since gone out. I sat up slowly, my head pounding. Everything felt off, wrong. I glanced around, expecting to see the creature still lurking, but the cabin was empty. Except it wasn't. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and moved toward the mirror hanging on the wall. My reflection stared back at me, just as it should have, but something was different. My eyes, they were black, empty.